Oops.
I know we're just preparing to stream live. You'll see it. You've done this before, I'm sure.
Not my first radio.
Hello and welcome to this special Facebook Live, because all of my guests on the Facebook Live series are special. But I'm so delighted this morning to welcome Donna McGeorge. We've been having a lovely chat about male productivity, or the cult of male productivity hacks, stay-at-home parenting, babysitting, the juggle load, the mental load, the return to office phenomenon, and many other things. So just to let me introduce her, Donna McGeorge is passionate about enhancing the large amount of time we spend in our workplace. Too much, too many, and yes, I'd agree with that, to ensure it is effective and productive as well as enjoyable. Donna is known as the productivity coach. She has a range of sessions, books, products, and services to help you improve your productivity. Welcome, Donna.
Hey, thanks, Serena. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy to see you here this morning. And could you show everyone your wonderful teacup? Because I just love your yellow.
Yes, it's a whole way of life. I accessorize with teacups. So I have the glasses and the jacket and the accessories. And in fact, the little bit of background stuff I got going on. It's all about yellow this morning, all about yellow.
Well, coming to you from here, from Ngunnawal country in Canberra, I'm very happy to see a bit of yellow. It's lovely. So thank you very much. Firstly, if those of you who are joining us online, make sure that you like and comment. Always love to see who's online, and I'm sure you will have lots of questions for Donna. So Donna, we're talking about productivity. What is it like productivity? Like we've got a productivity commission in Australia. There's, productivity dividends sometimes. What are we talking about when we're talking about productivity?
It's so individual, Serena. I reckon it's all about making sure that you're getting done what you think is the most important stuff for you to get done. And so I have a very holistic view of productivity. It's not just about work. It's, am I doing the personal or what do we call it? Well, we'll call it personal admin for the moment, but all the things that I need to do. Am I, spending the right amount of time with my kids? Am I doing the stuff that I like to do in my leisure? Am I reading books? Am I doing all those things? Then I have a productive life. Am I doing the things that I think I should be doing? So it's not just about work, definitely not.
So what role does procrastination have in this? I read somewhere that, there is actually a bit of a psychological role for it. But, how do you get through and beat that procrastination?
I'm not sure that you want to. So there's a couple of things I have to say. I've got a fair bit to say about procrastination. So sometimes it's really useful. Right? Sometimes it's a sign that you just need a break and your brain's just saying, can you just do something easy for me? Something that doesn't require thinking. Because if you think about, I know for me when I write books, and so when it's time for me to sit down and, bash out some words, that's about when my office gets really tidy and my desk needs a wipe over and I sweep up the floor and I do all those things. But none of those things require brain power. So it's almost like my brain saying to me, hey, we're not ready yet. Can you just potter around, do some other things, and then when you're ready, you'll come back. So that's one aspect of it. Sometimes procrastination happens because the task that we're putting off, we've made it really big in our heads. And the more we put it off, the bigger it gets in our heads. And so I'm a huge fan, of the idea that momentum trumps motivation. If you're waiting for motivation to do it, it's never going to come. And so if I just use the example of me writing books again, the days when I just don't feel like doing it, it's like, okay, I'll just do a couple of 100 words. And just that momentum, just doing a little bit of it, just a teeny tiny bit of it, that momentum means sometimes I think, oh, I'll just do a bit more. I'll do a bit more. Before I know it, I've been at it for an hour or so. And so for me, it's like, what's the one simple thing you could do just to get it started, just to create momentum? But you might be surprised, as a productivity author and expert, I'm okay with procrastination. It just is a sign that you might need a bit of a break.
Well, thank you for that, because I like to think I don't procrastinate because I'm a bit of a sort of do it now person, but I do quite a lot. And I know a lot of people do. And sometimes you do come up with your best ideas or different insights when you actually step back from things.
That's it. And there's been a whole heap of research recently around the value of daydreaming. And so we often think that we think of procrastination as a waste of time, but actually it's not. Often when you're procrastinating, you're just doing other stuff that you normally would have had to do later anyway. So that's cool. But the notion of daydreaming and giving us, and you've named it without knowing what you've named, but the pottering around gives us access to our alpha brainwaves. And they're the brainwaves. That's where creativity and problem solving sits. And so when we kind of bliss out or zone out or daydream, we're giving ourselves access to that ability to be a bit more creative, which is why you have great ideas. Permission granted. Go ahead, be daydream, procrastinate, go for your lives. You've all got my permission right now.
Oh, well, thank you. But please don't give me too much permission, because I'll be honest and say that Canberra winters, I mean, and I love the cold weather, but there's, not as much sunlight around. There's not as much, you just want to hibernate. And I accept this happens because it happens every year. I just really want to sleep, and I want to just kind of get under my electric rug, and I don't really want to do a lot. And then come spring and summer, I'll get a little bit more motivation. Do seasons and those types of things play a part in our productivity as well?
Absolutely. And in fact, studies mostly out of Europe and particularly Scandinavian countries where they have very long, dark winters, it's well known that it has a mental impact on you. There's a malaise that happens when we're too cold, too dark for too long. I sometimes think, 20,000 years ago, what did we do? We probably did hibernate to some extent. We probably did use that downtime in winter to do the kind of indoor, in shelter kinds of things that were still work, if you want to call it that, but we didn't push ourselves to be outdoors. It's just now that we can layer on clothes. We've got, a multiplistic lifestyle that means we can just stick on another layer if we need to. But again, I'm a big fan of paying attention to the clock in your body, not necessarily the one on the wall, and paying attention to what your body or your mind is telling you versus the guilt that happens. Like, I should be doing this. I should get out of bed earlier. Well, if it's cold and you don't have a lot on, you don't have a lot of obligations today. I don't know if it's okay to stay in bed, why not? To be fair, I live at the Gold Coast. It's never as cold as what it is in Queensland, but it is relatively, it's cold this morning. I did stay in bed for an extra half hour myself. There you go. Productivity headlines. Productivity guru sleeps in. It's all good.
So you're not one of those male influencers who are like, I was up at 4 a.m. in the middle of winter.
Oh my God, no.
And I ran a marathon before breakfast, and I achieved this all with one simple hack.
That is, for me, I don't know anyone that actually does that, except for these, and I'm sorry, they're mostly male influencers who get up and they talk about the 4 a.m. and the 5 a.m. starts. Look, the only woman I know who followed a 5 a.m. and sometimes 4 a.m. start, she was writing a book and she had 2 kids. And she said the only time she could get peace, it started 6 a.m. She'd get up so she could write for an hour before the kids surfaced. Then the kids found out she was getting up at 6, so they started getting up earlier. So then she got up at 5, and then eventually it was at 4. And she said the good news is they generally slipped to 6, but sometimes they'd still get up at 5 with her. So yeah, look, I find all of those articles, and there's plenty of them, and there's plenty of influencers who talk about all of that, working out at gyms. I guarantee if they've got kids, they've got a partner who's running the show, guaranteed, right? Or they've got no kids or no other obligations, right?
And we were talking earlier about a recent article in Women's Agenda that was talking about just that. So it was, and I know you probably can speak to this much more than me, but it was a guy who said, I've just been promoted to CEO, I've just finished a PhD, and I have 6 kids. How do I do this? I do this with one simple hack. And the simple hack, I think from memory, was that on Sunday he would sit down and work out what his priority for the week was.
Yep. Now, first of all, I love the hack. Sit down on a Sunday arvo, figure out what your priorities for the week are. Beautiful. Who's looking after the 6 kids while he's doing his PhD and he's CEOing? That's what I want to know. Because I got to tell you, while I just got the picture when I read that article of him sitting out in some sun lounge in his backyard and his wife or partner inside tearing her hair out with 6 kids running circles around her, right? And then he's having this blissful, he's probably got a headphone on, listening to Enya while he's planning his, his most important things he's going to do for the week. Anyone, if you don't have any responsibility for kids, you don't have kids, anyone could do that, right? That's easy. But most of us, we don't have that luxury. And even if you don't have kids, I'm very fortunate. My daughter's grown up. She's left home. She's over 30. But I've still got a life, and I couldn't ignore my personal life in favor of my professional life. Like, I just couldn't do that. My hubby would leave me, right? And so we're a partnership in this, and there's things we have to do. You can't ever ignore one for the other. And that guy in that article, for me, it sounded like he was ignoring an aspect of his world or abdicating responsibility completely over to his wife or partner.
I think, and I can't remember all the details, but I think he has now acknowledged his wife, because there was quite a lot of backlash.
Oh, look, if you find the tweet, maybe you can share it in your link. I can share the link with you as well. I went and read the tweet, and I went and read all the comments. Oh, he got absolutely pounded. And he did say, I now see how insensitive that was to not acknowledge all the hard work that my wife does that enables me to be a CEO and have a PhD and blah, 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 blah. Like, you betcha, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a key issue too, in terms of the gendered nature often of housework. And of course, this isn't true for every family.
No.
There are those who are married to men who do a lot of housework. My husband's away at the moment, and I miss him when he's away, not just because I love him and I miss him being around, but because he does a lot of housework. And when he's gone, I realize just how much he does.
Yes, I know. My husband does as well. From the moment we've been married just over 30 years, and from the moment we were together, he was all hands on. There was never this is your job, this is my job, any of that. Probably the only thing he insisted that he did was mowing the lawns. And I think that's because he liked it. He said there's nearly a meditative state he got into. He wouldn't use those words, but when he was mowing the lawns, and when we had a larger property, we used to live on 20 acres, he'd get on a ride on. He would just love the peace and quiet of that. So I left him to that because he really loved that. But I've got to tell you, sorry, this is going to make me sound very pathetic and terrible. I actually don't know how to use our new washing machine, because that's another one of the jobs he quite likes to do. So he handles the washing and all of that. So
when hubby went away last year, we had a new vacuum cleaner, and I had it, I think, for about 6 to 12 months, but sometimes I use it, but I'd never actually changed it. And so I rang him in a bit of a flurry because I didn't know how to remove get the dust out. What do you call it? Change the dust
inside. The bag.
Yeah,
inside,
well, it didn't have a bag. It's one of those ones that doesn't. And he was driving back from work in the car with the young engineer, because he's a technical officer, and the young engineer there was laughing. But, I'm not an engineering type, right? So I'm a writer, I can speak Chinese, I can write a book. But, changing the filter on the vacuum cleaner, that has me. But usually we do these things together as a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Now let's go back to talking about some of the things that you are, best known for. And today we are going to talk about, the one-day refund and adaptive capacity. So what is adaptive capacity?
So adaptive capacity is mostly spoken about in manufacturing, sometimes in the environment, but it's the space, the ability and the buffer, if you will, to recognize change or respond to changing circumstances, and have the capacity and resources to do that. And so if we think about the last 2 years, I know a lot of people use the pivot word a lot, so our ability to pivot.
And some people get very triggered by the word pivot. Some people love it. A lot of people hate it.
I know, right? Because it's got overused. It's just one of those classic words that just got overused. But for me, it was those who were able to see what was coming, or even experience what was happening, and had the capacity, the adaptive capacity to be able to go, I reckon we can shift. I reckon we can do this. Because there were plenty that didn't. Plenty that still are scrambling to respond, because work has not gone back to what it would be in 2019. It's never, I don't think it's ever going to. And so for us as just regular humans, the way I describe it is, if you think about your fuse, how someone says, oh, I've got a very short fuse, I've got a long fuse or whatever. So the longer your fuse, the more adaptive capacity you have. Something happens and you respond or react to that. And the longer your fuse, the more time you give yourself to think and ponder options, the better you are. Whereas if something happens and bang, you just react, often you then have to apologize, is my experience of that. And so I say people need thinking space, breathing space, living space, working space, to be able to have, you need space to be able to have adaptive capacity.
Thank you for that. And it is really interesting to see how much people have taken on and how lives have shifted. And you're right, I don't think it'll ever be going back to the new normal. One of the things I see, particularly in terms of this move back to live events, and of course, not everyone wants to go back to live events. We still, as someone pointed out recently, we are still in the middle of COVID. It's not over. There's still very high rates of hospitalisation, still very high rates of cases, but we just have a lot more of the population who are vaccinated now, but it's still pretty high. But what I'm finding with live events is that it is very difficult to get people to come, because what we've done is we've filled up our life now with all these Zoom meetings. Now we can, in the past, you could only necessarily go to an event, you know, if there was a conference in Melbourne, you would take time out and you would go to Melbourne for that conference. But now you do that online while you're balancing a whole lot of other things at the same time. And then someone invites you to an event and suddenly you can't go because there's all these things that are in your calendar. Is this a real problem? Are you seeing this with your clients?
I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, but this is potentially was a problem even before the pandemic, that people would just fill their lives, fill every empty space with something. The notion, you know, boredom, the notion if I have downtime, it's a waste of time, or downtime is boredom, or when I'm not doing something, I'm bored or waiting. I should be active all the time. That's been a phenomenon for a while. And so I say that we should be creating about a 15% buffer in our world for several things, right? So Serena, your example of my calendar's so full, I can't take advantage of an opportunity to say go to a conference or have a meeting or whatever. You never want to be the person that's too busy to work with. So let's say, you know, one of your listeners is thinking, oh, gee, I like Donna McGeorge, wouldn't mind having a yak with her about a potential opportunity. And I say, I'm so sorry, I'm too busy. I can't get you in my diary for 8 weeks. Well, no one wants to wait 8 weeks for that. No one does. So I never want to be too busy to work with, never want to be too busy to interact with, and never want to be too busy to not be able to take advantage of an opportunity when it comes up. And so about 15% will do that for you. So in that's why the book's called The One Day Refund. In 7 days, 15% is about 1 day. Whereas in a work week, it's about 6 hours. And so I say we want to do either an hour a day, we have book a meeting with yourself, so you've got a bit of space for yourself.
Wow, I love that.
I know, right? Is, you know, because we all have the feeling, those of us who have kind of regular jobs or whatever, someone cancels a meeting at the last minute and we feel so relieved. Wow,
I had 2 of those cancel on Wednesday and I was so excited.
Isn't it?
I was like,
glorious.
Wow, I don't have to rush. Yeah.
I've got now 2 hours to do something that I choose to do that'll either help me catch up and get ahead, or I can get work on that proposal or PowerPoint presentation, whatever it might be that I'm doing, which means I don't have to spend that 2 hours maybe on a Saturday morning, which I might have had to do. And so I say, why not have a meeting with yourself every day for at least an hour? And you can look forward to that. You get to that moment where you go, oh, a whole hour just for me. Don't be at the mercy of someone cancelling. I'm also, a lot of my corporate clients are doing things like they won't say no meetings on a Wednesday or no meetings after 12 o'clock on a Friday, because it's not about goofing off. It's not about I take that 15% and I goof off.
Yeah.
It's about I say who, I say when. I get to choose what I do with that time. And it could be goofing off if you need it, just quietly, permission granted. Or it could be I'm doing the things that my future self will thank me for. I'm getting ahead of my curve.
No, thank you for that. And I think that is really important in how we structure our time. I was speaking to some staff at the Canberra Innovation Network recently, and they're actually moving to a 4-day work week to trial it. And I said, oh, are you working extra hours to catch up on that? And they said, no, we're just trialing it just to see how it goes. And I was like, wow, I'm really interested to see this. And I had read previously that, you know, there's been a lot of research about how optimally we only really work at a peak sort of intellectual rate for about 3 to 4 hours a day. And a lot of Indigenous communities, that's all they do. They hunt for 3 or 4 hours a day, and then they kind of stop. But for us, we think we have to keep going. You know, it's like almost a badge of honor. I've been working 12 hours. I've been working 14-hour days.
Does my head in. Now, the person we have to blame for 8-hour work days, or I don't know, blame, that's such a heavy word, right? It was, you know, Henry Ford was doing everyone a favor because it's the Industrial Revolution that this work ethic comes from. Because factories technically could keep going. Machinery can keep going as long as you want. It's just the people who needed to run the machinery. And so back in the late 1800s, 1900s, a standard workday was around 12 hours a day because they want to keep the machinery running. And Henry Ford said, I wonder what would happen if we only did 8 hours a day. And he did 3 shifts of 8 hours a day. And he was able to produce the volume of cars that he did. So this 8-hour workday, it's also related to the labor movement, which is again a spin-off out of the Industrial Revolution, where 8 hours work, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours leisure is meant to be the model, which is great. But it's not, as you say, Indigenous communities, they know that, or Indigenous, tribes, they know that they can do the optimal amount of work for about 4 hours and then they need to rest. Now that we're in a knowledge economy for the most part, we've got to be very careful about how we're overusing our brain. Now, I personally believe that's why we're seeing such a rise in poor mental health and poor mental well-being, is we're just not ever giving this muscle in our heads a break. We're just constantly on. We're 100% on 100% of the time. We never get a break. And even when we do sleep, it's poor sleep or it's not long enough or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, take me back. I wish, just in Australia, I wish we had been, well, I don't wish we'd been colonised at all. I don't want to kind of get into the politics of that. But if we were going to be colonised, gee, the Spaniards would have been better because we'd be having a siesta. Because we have a siesta climate, right? For the most part, you know, we work in the morning, have a bit of a nap for a few hours, couple of hours again. I'd love that. You know, that would work for me.
I think in theory, but yes, my husband was spent a bit of time in Spain, and he was meant to have spent a lot of time in 2020 back in Spain, but of course, you know, the pandemic happened, and in fact, he was meant to go back just as the borders shut. Thankfully, he didn't, because he could have been caught over there, which wouldn't have been nice at all. But yeah, they get up really early, so the working day from memory was about 7 till about like 1 or 2, and then they have the big siesta. But then, of course, restaurants don't open and they're up late. But what was interesting is they don't seem to get that big 8 hours sleep. They sort of seem to get like about 5 or 6 hours sleep, and then they get the siesta. So their sleep is broken up in different ways. Well,
there's been some studies done about in a 24-hour period having 2 sleeps is not that bad a thing. But we're actually, our physiology is designed to feel sleepy and go to sleep when it gets dark, and to feel alert and wakeful when it gets light. That's how melatonin is produced or not. So I'll take it back. I actually think the notion that we go to sleep when it's dark and we wake up when it's light and we are alert all day, it's just, I think we push our brains too hard during the day. And I reckon more breaks is what would be useful.
Fabulous. And don't get me started about sleeping at work, because certainly when I was a young mum, I really needed somewhere to sleep during lunchtime. And in fact, in Buddhism, particularly Chan or Zen Buddhism, they do believe, you know, in different forms of meditation. And one of them is sleeping meditation. So Chinese medicine does believe in having some sleeping meditation at lunchtime, which is lying down. So it's not necessarily sleeping. And this was kind of what got me through when I was sort of up all night breastfeeding. But modern workplaces, there is no space for this
unless you're in China. So I lived in China for 2 years, and the local Chinese, they'd go out and have their lunch, they'd come back, they'd put their head on their desk and have a 20-minute nap. Right?
When I try to do that, people wake me up because they ask if I'm sick.
They poke you and they say, you okay? You okay?
Just leave me alone. Mum with young children, I don't get much sleep. or you go under the desk, but then of course under your desk, you know, apart from the fact it's dusty and it's dirty, there's like all the electrical cables and stuff, and it's not ideal. But
Look,
this is a real problem.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see modern workplaces be okay for people just to have a nap. Living in China, I learned a couple of great things. One, lunch is sacrosanct, and we're terrible at that. In Australia, we are workaholics. We do millions of hours of unpaid overtime. We've got millions of hours of leave we haven't taken. We rarely take lunch breaks, and we're terrible sleepers. That's just known stuff. So I learned in China, you take a decent lunch break, and it is the most important meal of the day. You get a decent feed at lunchtime, and then you have an afternoon nap, and then you power on for the afternoon. I would love to see more workplaces do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I used to find that when I did do this, and I have been actually a bit slack. Now that I work from home, I sort of find I don't need to do it as much. I think just the intensity of my day is different. But I'm much more effective in the afternoons when I do that. Much more effective. I do all my good thinking work, whereas most people in the afternoon are like, give me another coffee. I'm not struggling. They're sort of a bit like this, but I'll be able to really think through some difficult things. And sometimes it's that clarity, I think.
Absolutely. And in fact, if any of your listeners are thinking, oh, gee, I don't know that I could take an afternoon nap, let me give you a little tip. Something I heard about called a nappuccino, where so caffeine takes about 20 minutes to hit the system. So, you know, at some point early afternoon, say about 1:30, 2 o'clock, have a shot of coffee, then have a nap or this little power nap for about 15 minutes. And then you wake up, you get the double whammy, you get the caffeine hit, and you've had a bit of a rest. Boom, you're going to power through the afternoon.
Love that. Love that. I don't drink coffee, but I can do the same with tea. Absolutely. Now, one final thing is that we need to talk about is these 25-minute meetings. So why 25 minutes? What's the significance of this?
Great question. So I've been running 25-minute meetings for over 12 years now. It started as a bit of an experiment because I was watching, holy cow, all these people, why are we spending all this time in meetings, so much wasted time? Bit back to your point around we only spend about 3 or 4 hours a day doing actually, you know, good work, if you want to use that
mentally
phrase.
Productive time.
Mentally productive time, thank you. I'd watch in meetings that of the hour, only about 25 minutes of them were productive, and I was watching what was happening. So I started researching it all. First of all, I started running my own 25-minute meetings, and it worked. And then I started researching, you know, magic numbers. Did I just arbitrarily pick 25 or 30 minutes? Because it started at 30, and then I started to see how far I could wind back, and 25 seemed to be the right thing. But it's also standing on the shoulders of the fabulous Francesco Cirillo, who wrote the book, The Pomodoro Method, which is, he did the research that says 25 minutes of focus, 5-minute break. So it came about for both of those reasons. So 25 minutes, usually, if, you know, so many people take their phones to meetings, their laptops to meetings, and they're working while they're in the meeting. I'm like, can't you just focus for 25 minutes? So that's the number that, yes, scientifically we can focus for 25 minutes. And it also doesn't feel like too long for people. Like, okay, yep, I can, you know, turn off phones, turn off all distractions for that. And it gives you a 5-minute break. And this is particularly important, anyone that's now been in back-to-back Zooms for the last 2 years. When do you go to the bathroom, right? So you need a 5-minute break to freshen up your tea, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, and then just get your head in the game for the next meeting. So
and follow up too, like often like in that meeting, it'll be a simple follow-up if you need to introduce someone to something, we need to send an email. And like when you've got back-to-back, like it gets to the end of the day.
And suddenly you've got 2 hours of emails you're going to have to do at the end of the day, right?
And then you forget stuff. Whereas if you do it straight away, like it's done.
Yeah. And look, the other thing is my preference for people is that they have one 25-minute meeting per hour. And this is based on work that was done by Frederick Winslow Taylor, probably the first, management consultant ever. He didn't call himself that. But he did studies around physical activity and said that people who, so the standard workday was, say 8 hours with a break in the morning, break in the afternoon, break for lunch. And he found that people who did 25 minutes work, took a 5-minute break, 25, 35, 25, 35 in a day, did up to 600% more.
600%.
He was mostly talking about physical stuff, lifting, loading iron onto the back of railway things. whatever they're called, the things. I've just had COVID. I've still got a bit of mind fog.
You're doing so well. I would never have
Thank
guessed.
you. And so I'm applying that theory to myself, and I find it one 25-minute meeting an hour is great because it gives you a whole 35 minutes to do the follow-up, send the email, prepare yourself for the next one, take a bit of a break, catch up on a couple of emails, and your day is just that much better.
Well, I think I need to do these Facebook Lives now for 25 minutes, and I think
Yes.
I need to do my podcast. I usually aim for 30 minutes, but sometimes it takes a little while by the time you do the introduction. So by the time you do that, probably is around 25 minutes. But you've given me some great ideas for doing that.
Yay,
Fabulous.
you're welcome.
Well, Donna, you are just simply amazing. You have just rocked my world already with this, 1 hour scheduling something for yourself a day and with the 25-minute meetings. How can people find you? Where can people find you and work with you?
Lovely. I'm a shameless self-promoter, so you'll find me on all the social media platforms. My name's unusual, Donna McGeorge. There aren't many of us, so just Googling that will find what you need. DonnaMcGeorge.com is probably the easiest way if you want to reach out to me. My email is d@donnamcgeorge.com, so the letter d@donnamcgeorge.com. That's probably the easiest way. And my books can be found in most good bookstores and all the online stores. So thanks for that opportunity for the plug, Serena.
Lovely, thank you. And Gina Callan says, thank you so much, Donna and Serena. And Nicole says, love the 25-minute meetings and definitely will apply it to my time management.
Lovely.
I think I'm definitely going to apply that as well. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.